You guys to be here. This is our third industry session here. We're super excited. Also, we're partnering with Wix. So if allow her to do a quick introduction.
Hello, how are we doing all today? Okay, so who's excited for Capital One and free Chick-fil-A?
I'm excited. For sure.
I just want to thank Capital One for sponsoring this session with us, with Init and Wix. So speaking about Wix, who knows what's coming Friday?
WixCon.
WitCon, let's go!
Yeah.
And you know who's coming to WitCon? Yes,
Capital One's gonna be there.
Let's go. So please, thank you so much for sponsoring us for WitCon. So who registered for WitCon already?
Register.
Yes, I'd like to see those hands, but if you did not put your hand up, this is your perfect opportunity to go and register for WitCon. So WitCon is our annual Women in Technology conference. It's going to happen on Friday, GC Ballrooms from 9 to 7 p.m. We're going to have amazing sponsors. We have amazing events coming up. We have amazing panels. Honestly, it is a day for uplifting women and everyone in CS. So with this said, please come to WitCon. Please register to WitCon. We're partnering as well with Init. They're going to be doing an activity. So thank you so much, Init, for supporting us.
Of course, of course. Of course.
All right, with this being said, I'll bring it back to Ryan so that we can continue with the Capital One session. Thank you so much, everyone.
Awesome, awesome. Everybody please give her a great hand of applause. Awesome. So I believe they are ready. Almost ready? Okay. Cool.
Technology is not technology right now, friends.
To this?
Yeah.
Let me see. Let me just real quick. Well, while we're getting ready, just gather around, have a seat, and get ready for this amazing workshop. Thank you all for coming. We're going to get started real soon, okay? Awesome.
Okay, great. Hi, everyone. Try this again. Hi, everyone. Thank you. That's a lot better. Well, welcome to the Technical and Case Interview Prep Workshop, sponsored by Capital One. I know that all of this talking is separating y'all from being able to eat Chick-fil-A, which I know is the real reason why you're here. You're welcome. But I just want to give a quick introduction for myself. I may have to skedaddle in a little bit, so I just wanted to let you all know who I am. My name is Brianna Nichols. I am the recruiting lead for Capital One in partnership with FIU. So my job is to get all of you hired and into roles at Capital One by hosting workshops like this to make sure that you all are prepared for our interview process. We have a lot of other events throughout the rest of the week. Hopefully, we'll be able to get to those. But before we get started,
Like that.
before we get started, I know y'all checked in earlier. This is the only way that you will receive emails from me. I promise I won't send y'all crazy emails. My emails will be about jobs, and y'all want to get hired, right? Perfect. Okay, so don't block me. My emails will be positive, but this way you will learn about any opportunities, whether those are virtual interview sessions that we host, whether that's when our requisitions open, which should open around July. So our recruitment season at Capital One is July through September. The earliest that you all, what's wrong? There's a lot of chatter. Y'all good? Okay. The earliest that y'all apply for our requisitions, the better your chances are, because our requisitions do close really fast due to just the size and the number of applicants that we do get. So again, this email or this QR code will get y'all into our talent network. But the first part of the interview process is making sure that you all are familiar with our technical and case prep. Have any of y'all done cases before? Okay, we have a few people. So for a lot of you, this all will be new. We have two amazing presenters. I'm going to let them, our facilitators, I'm going to let them introduce themselves. And if you have any questions, I'll be around for the rest of the week. I might not be here by the end of this program, but I have some other people, and they can answer any questions or get you in contact with me. Again, thanks for coming, and have a great rest of your day.
Are we both? I don't know.
We can just
Cool.
use this one for now. Hey guys, my name is Nidhi. So I'm a TDT right now, Capital One, so I will be walking through some technical kind of problems and case problems you might see in our possible interviews. I also did my internship with Capital One 2 years ago, 2023 summer, so I am based in Dallas, and yeah, I'll give it over to.
Hello, everyone. I'm Nico. I'm a software engineer with Capital One. I've been working with Capital One for about a year and a half now. I joined via our TDP program, and I am excited to get to show y'all the interview process I went through. So, yeah. Sorry, we had some technical difficulties, so we're presenting off a phone right now. But we'll make it work. We'll make it work. Okay, so at Capital One, there are 3 different interviews in our interview process. First off, we have a behavioral interview, and this is just the classic interview. Tell me about yourself, tell me a time you did this. How many of y'all have done an interview like this before? Yeah, so it's a pretty normal interview in that sense. You're just giving like an overview of your experience and anything else the recruiter might ask. It's usually just a few questions, and it's really just to get to know you. Next up, we have a technical interview, and this is specific to software engineering. This interview is looking at a lot of code. I'm sure a lot of y'all are familiar with LeetCode. I know I hated LeetCode. But I was refreshed to find out that Capital One doesn't do strict LeetCode interviews. These types of technical interviews are, they'll give you a question and you just work through code to get to a solution. It's not so much LeetCode. We'll get more into it in a second, and I'll show you an example. I think you'll be excited. And then finally, the last type of interview is a case interview. This one's pretty unique, and you're given a business problem, and the interviewer will help you work through that, and you'll get to showcase your problem-solving skills. Whoops. Cool. Sorry, I'm working with a computer and a phone here. Cool. So into the technical interview. There's some common topics you need to know, such as programming languages. You need to know high-level algorithm or system design. Very high level, you don't need to get too into the details. And you're likely going to need to implement a specific algorithm to solve a problem. Interviewers want to see analytical problem solving and design skills, the ability to recognize and fix mistakes in your code. Of course, they want correct and efficient solutions. We all know that there can be multiple solutions to any problem. They want to see efficient solutions. They want to see character traits that align with Capital One's values. That's an important one. And they want to see that you're authentically interested in what Capital One does and what we stand for. They don't want to see perfect execution, heads down coding, and arrogance. Remember, like, you're going to be working with these people. They want to see that you're someone that they also would want to work with. They don't want the solutions to be too oversimplified. Of course, it needs to be readable and easy to read, but they don't want it so simple. And they don't want to see that you refuse to consider different solutions or adapt to interviewer input. And this is because on the job, you're constantly changing what you code. You need to take everyone's opinions into consideration. Cool. Is this mine or yours? Yours.
So there are a few topics that are very common during the interviews. So feel free to take a picture of this slide. So there's like common core object-oriented concepts, front and back, things you learn in school and college, classes inheritance, polymorphism, object-oriented design. And then you have data structures and algorithms. They're going to kind of see your thought process through how you work through array lists versus linked lists, stacks versus queues, hash tables, and trees. Also language-specific like libraries, like if you're using front-end, like NPM, etc. Common design patterns. You also have big O complexity for speed and memory use. So not only do they want to see you using these, they kind of want to see your thought process and why you chose to use, for example, an array list versus a linked list. What's the most suited in a problem that they give you? What's the most efficient solution? So let's go through what to expect during your technical interview. So before you start solving, you really need to lay out the problem. Ask more questions to fully kind of gauge and understand what they're asking you. State your assumptions, what you think it is, and you can ask them like, hey, I'm thinking X, Y, and Z. Is that the correct thing you're referring to? You can walk through simple examples to help make your plan easier. Go over possible approaches with your pros and cons, discuss problem points, and look for keywords in the question. While you're solving, make sure to think out loud, design an algorithm for efficiency, identify areas of inefficiency if they give you an existing solution, consider size of data sets, break the problem down into simple steps, and explain. Explain through your thought process, go step by step, and make sure that if you have any questions, basically ask and reevaluate your answer, go through your code, and use a good sample set.
I think this is me. Cool. So we're going to go through an example here. Given a list of cities and salaries, calculate and return the average salary of each city. So I want you to take 30 seconds and just brainstorm what questions you may ask your interviewer once they show you this question. So go ahead and take 30 seconds, and I'll check back. Cool. So would anybody like to ask me a question? Pretend I'm your interviewer. Right there in the middle.
Could we be given an empty list?
See, exactly. That's an example of a great question. You want to basically ask what type of input you can receive. Anyone else? Back there? Exactly. So these are good examples of questions you're going to want to ask the interviewer to basically set up your problem. Sure, right there.
And then how else would you like the format to be listed?
Exactly.
The listing format is very important.
Yeah, exactly, because output also matters. These are all questions you're going to want to ask to set up your problem and set up your answer for success. So here's some example questions. What's the data type of input and output? Are we working in arrays? Are we working in JSON? What does it look like? How are we going to code this? Could you provide me of examples of input and output? What is the data type of salary? Is it a double? Is it an int? And then how many records are in the input list? These are all clarifying questions you need to ask so you can give your interviewer the correct solution. So, and now I want you all to take 30 seconds and think of possible solutions to this problem. I can go ahead and put up the answer again. Cool. So here is an example of one algorithm that can be used to solve this. Keep in mind, there are many different answers to a single question. So this is just one example and compared to what you might have thought of in your head. So possible solution, we can create a class average salary per city with city name, total salary, number of records, and city average salary. Create a list of average salary per city, create a list average salary per city, and then we want to iterate through that input list. So for each record, iterate through the average salary list. If the city name of the input matches with the average salary per city's name, we then want to add the input salary to total salary, increment the number of records, set the city average salary via total salary divided by number of records, and then finally return the average. So, sorry, I know that was a lot, and I know it's not actual code, so it might be a little confusing. I'm sure y'all are better at reading code than reading that. So, obviously this algorithm works, but it runs in O n squared time, meaning it is not very efficient. I'm sure all of y'all have learned big O, correct? Yeah. So n squared is not very efficient. Yes, it does work, but it isn't efficient. But this solution does support object-oriented programming, and it is pretty straightforward to implement. That leads us to a second solution. This one might be a little easier to understand. So we create a class, salary details, with city average salary, total salary, and number of records. We then create a hash map, average salary list, with the name of the city being the key and salary details as the value. Then we iterate through that input list that we are given, and for each input record, we get the corresponding value from the map by the name, and we add the input salary to total salary and increment the number of records. We iterate through the map, and for each key, set the city average salary via total salary divided by number of records, and we return the average. So the cons behind this are hash maps require a lot of memory. If we're thinking millions of records, that could take a lot of memory. but it is much more efficient than the last solution. This one is in big O of n, meaning much more efficient than O of n squared. And that's because it's quick to retrieve a hash map key. So key takeaway here is in these technical interviews, you need to know your data structures. I can speak from experience. I think in my interview question, I was using like a few nested hash maps. So they love asking hash map questions. It's important to know your data structures. And I have to add that using different data structures will often help you get a more optimal solution that the interviewer is looking for. The interviewer will also kind of coach you along the way and kind of nudge you in the right direction and see what type of answer you come up with. Is this you?
So let's look at another question. Using the return data structure from the first question, find the cities with the highest and lowest average salary. Meaning whatever type of data structure you get returned, for example, an array list or whatever type of data type that you choose to return your answer in, based on that, find the cities with the highest and lowest average salary. A lot of times interviewers kind of base your question in a step-by-step manner, meaning there's step A, step B, step C. A lot of times they kind of work off of what you previously did. They're not going to correct you on step A. They're going to ask you, hey, based off of the solution that you gave in step A, can you please explain like what you would do in step B? Because they really want to see like how you kind of think through the entire thought process of the question without interfering and kind of giving their bias of an answer. So I'm going to give you guys 30 seconds to try to figure out like what you guys want to do with this question, and we'll get back to you.
The previous question, where were we storing the data?
Where?
The data, the average, was it getting stored?
Hold on, let me look. So there's an average salary list.
Average salary list?
Yes.
Okay, so does anyone have any questions to ask the interviewer based off of what we just asked you? Yes.
Do we have to find the highest and most salary average in the same week?
In the same, sorry?
The same week of going through the data for the average salary?
Do you mean the same list that you
The
get
list that
returned?
we just returned.
Yes, so you kind of have to like, like in the list, you have like average salary per city. So like, for example, Miami might have a different salary than like Dallas. So yes, that's a good good question to ask. Anyone else? Yeah.
Is the list ordered?
That's a great question. That can also be something that you can ask the interviewer. And two more examples of what you can ask are, can I use sort functions? Like you said, is the list ordered? What if there are cities within the same average salary? Then what do you do? Do you return the, like alphabetically? Like how would you return that data? So those are also questions that are valid to ask. Moving on. All right, I'll give you guys 30 more seconds to like think of a solution.
Whoops. Sorry.
You didn't see that.
I forget which ones I am.
Like 14 or something.
We're 16. Yeah.
16.
Yeah.
All right, let's look through some possible examples or like answers that you could possibly do. So the first algorithm, possible solution could be setting the lowest maximum integer value and the highest value to minimum integer value, meaning like you have base variables that you set the highest and lowest in the list to, and then you create a city with the lowest salary, city with the highest salary variable, iterate through the input, which is the list that you just returned from the first step, and if the current city salary is greater than the highest, then set the highest to the city salary. Then you set the city with the highest salary to the current city. So you're not only keeping track of the city's salary, but also the city itself. So you have two different variables going on for each highest and lowest. And then if the city salary is smaller than the lowest, then set the lowest to the current city's salary and set the city with the current salary to the current city. Meaning set the lowest amount that you found through the list to the lowest city variable, and then store the city with the lowest salary in the lowest city salary variable. That might sound like a bunch of things that I just spat at you right now, but you can go through the solution later on and kind of go through it, but the city with the lowest salary will be tracked that way, and you can find out like the total average based on the average that you were given before. So basically, lowest is going to be tracked, highest is going to be tracked. All right, cool. That's just a little bit of the technical interview. If you guys have questions, you can always come to us at the end. And we do have another technical portion after this case interview process, so we're just going to quickly run through the case interview.
Uh-oh, it's not loading. There we go. Got it. Okay. One of the three interviews was a case interview. No overview of the case interview, so to start, plan for 1 to 2 minutes to just introduce yourself to your interviewer. It's most likely a manager at Capital One, so just get to know them, introduce yourself, and then you'll set expectations for the case. So the interviewer will establish rules, processes, expectations, and answer any questions you might have. Then the interviewer will start explaining the business situation. This is a conceptual discussion, focuses on your qualitative skills and your communication. So this is a time where you can ask any questions about the business situation and clarify that with your interviewer. So part of the case interview also has a technical aspect. This is when you'll look through some code. So you'll trace through code and test. You're not writing any code like in the technical interview, rather you're reading code. So this focuses on technical problem solving. You might be analyzing some code, looking for bugs, and then communicating that with your interviewer with whatever questions they may have. Also, you want to follow up any questions you have about what you see. So let's say you're confused about some of the code, ask that to your interviewer. The interviewer wants to see that you're able to communicate that and ask clear and concise questions to clarify anything you may need. So there'll be a few different like code tracing questions, data analysis, stuff like that. But after all that, you'll get to close things out with your interviewer and ask them any questions you might have about Capital One, roles, etc. Yeah, and then you can see on the right side, basically they use the case to kind of get a feel for your analytical and problem-solving skills. this mirror you?
So here's a quick overview. So we're going to go through the description, structure, and purpose. So a case problem could look like this. First, it's going to start with a description. So a problem-solving exercise structured around a business or technical solution or situation, designed to be interactive and collaborative when needed, and includes multiple qualitative and quantitative questions. The structure could establish a situation and starting facts, initial conceptual and qualitative discussion, and additional problem-solving exercises could be asked, providing further data, graphs, codes, diagrams, or other relevant material to kind of gauge what you're thinking through in your thought process. Typically increasing in complexity and often using previous results to ask further questions. Getting the feel for the problem is more of like the purpose and analysis skills. Assessing ability to communicate the solution, approaches, and results. Evaluating the skills, which include code analysis, data interpretation, basic math, and also gauging the ability to reach solutions autonomously. So an opening discussion could look like this. Your interviewer will ask questions to gauge your understanding of the situation, your insights, and your effectiveness conveying responses. Your time box to about 10 to 12 minutes to answer. And the tips that we give you are to ask questions to clarify when needed. Always ask questions. Make sure you are willing to kind of understand the whole scope of the question and not just go off of what you know. They're going to answer your questions in areas that you basically that they can answer. Provide brief and concise responses within supporting rationale. The case is not a test of knowledge, but more of like asking questions and kind of understanding the whole picture. Let's go through an example. So here's one. Capital One was known as a credit card company with national scale presence. As the company grew, it added other banking products such as money markets, loans, and mortgages. Capital One took a big step into digital banking in 2011 with the acquisition of ING Direct, a national scale virtual banking company known for exceptional online experiences, leading savings rates, investment products, and great customer relations. So a case interview could look possibly like asking this question right now. So here's a sample conversation that you can have with your interviewer. The interviewer could ask, what business benefits might acquiring ING Direct have to do with Capital One? And first step is to ask more questions. So candidate could be like, can you explain what do you mean by a virtual bank? Making sure you understand the full scope of the question, and if you have any confusing terms, please clarify. So the interviewer could be asking you, virtual means ING Direct has no bank branches. Everything is completely online and customers interact over the phone or online. And the candidate could be asking further questions upon the answer and say, did Capital One have branches? And did Capital One also offer savings and investments? Trying to pick out what possible pros you can get from moving to an online bank. The interviewer could ask or say, we did have some branches from prior acquisitions in a few states, and we had a national scale money market savings and some regional savings and checking accounts. So the candidate could narrow his answer down to some business benefits could be Capital One can reach and service more customers needing full banking service online. These relations can be long-lasting since many people rarely change banks. So creating that long-lasting relationship with the customer. Capital One deepens relationships by offering complementary products such as credit cards to bank customers and also attractive benefits for using them like rewards. And lastly, the company can adopt the best products, technology, and people assets, including the best redundant infrastructure, overlapping functions, and underperforming products, therefore reducing operation expenses and increasing profits. Meaning that basically moving to online will reduce the resources that we're going to be using as a bank. Reducing resources saves money and also makes the whole system more efficient and all in one place.
Is it? Cool. All right. Carrying on the example conversation, what technical challenges and benefits might acquiring ING Direct have to Capital One? What do you mean by technical? Are you referring to software, systems, etc.? Again, just setting yourself up for success by asking questions. The interviewer might respond, yes, technical challenges or benefits relate to technology or IT situations. So, some challenges that may come to mind are both companies will have numerous systems, software, etc., that overlap, such as billing, HR, accounting, websites, databases, etc. These will have to be simplified to reduce cost. Both companies may use different internal systems like email, benefits, reporting, etc., that must be integrated and then consolidated. There will be training costs as well. Statements, cards, signs, ATMs, etc. will all need to be rebranded and updated. And the companies will have different data models and names for things. Some benefits and opportunities might include reduced costs, improved capabilities by selecting the best and most flexible IT systems and platforms. So you can tell that these types of questions are a lot different than a technical interview. They're very general in nature, and again, they're used to test how well you can ask questions and understand business scenarios. Is this Amelia? You? Yeah.
Okay, so jumping into the quantitative section, assessing technical problem solving, analysis, and analytical thinking, and technical skills. So quantitative questions mean that it's kind of assessing technical problem solving, structured analysis, math, code, data, and interpretation skills. You may need to make assumptions or ask for additional information to kind of come to a conclusion. Quantitative questions may include analyzing data, setting up equations, and using the provided data to solve for one or more values. It's very math heavy and also data heavy because it uses like graph data, or you have to interpret graphs to compute the values or make recommendations. Code cases may be offered in multiple languages, so you kind of will be offered a choice. Most of the choices are Java, Python, Golang, Node.js, C, C++, Swift, and Kotlin.
I think me. Cool. And I have to add, the math isn't too complex. I think it can all be done on a scientific calculator. Mm-hmm. I believe I actually brought one with me when I interviewed. But yeah, it's not like we're not doing calculus or anything, but there definitely is some math. Cool, so some tips, tools for the quantitative part. So for remote case interviews, we use Zoom to do this. And an online interactive editor to share code, data, and it allows you and your interviewer to collaborate. Cool. So some tips. Pay attention to details in both the description, the data, and the code. Ground assumptions. Make sure you're asking a lot of questions. Get the full picture from your interviewer. Ask for more data if you think you need it. If you can't get the full picture from what is there, ask your interviewer. And think out loud. This is to judge how you are thinking. So when you're thinking out loud, it allows your interviewer to picture how you're doing it in your head. And then show your work, especially for the math and data analysis. You want to show your work using the above tools, meaning like the interactive editor, so your interviewer can see how you're thinking. Keep track of units. You can't just put 25 transactions per second, $50 per customer. You want to keep track of the units you're using and make it clear for your interviewer. Cool. So, sample quantitative problem. ING uses an internally developed software module, the eligibility engine, to determine a customer's eligibility for an additional banking product. The eligibility engine code was developed over time by a variety of teams and is undocumented. We want to understand how this code works. Assume you are the assigned engineer. Your task is to analyze the code and report back to leadership. A, under what conditions an account is eligible and ineligible for another product? B, what observations do you have about this code? And C, what recommendations would you make relative to this code? And then this is when you'll actually get to look at the code. Cool. Is this you?
Just adding on to the tips section. So I personally, during my quantitative analysis part, was basically writing out comments after each line of code, just so the interviewer could see. Basically, they can't, like, you can have like a drawing tool, but I found it really hard to use, so I kind of just commented every single part, and they would tell me like, hey, can you expand on this, or like, do you think there's another approach, or they'll kind of nudge you towards like the good direction, or like kind of like push you to do like a deeper analysis or like a more efficient solution if you're on the right track. So I would suggest doing that. So here's an example of code in Java. So for the eligibility engine, so we can start with this is one of the examples that they give you. They could ask you to make it more efficient. So that's what we're doing right now. So this student basically set up an eligible equals 1 integer and another integer for not eligible equals 0. They created a method called runEligibility, taking in 3 parameters: is active, was acquired, and has restrictions, which are all Boolean variables. So it's basically if nested if-else statements. If is active is not true, and if acquired, and if it has restrictions, then return not eligible. Do you see how confusing it is? Like, everything is kind of like nested within each other, and a lot of the statements are kind of overlapping and contradicting. So let's look at a way where we can kind of simplify this. This is just a Python example of the code, so we can just skip past this because it's the same example but in Python. So let's look at the observations that we first found. Eligible and non-eligible are defined as constant value integers. This is an odd choice for 2 outcomes because more like in an ideal world, it would be true or false. So a Boolean would be a more natural way to put it. Why might integer have been used? Maybe there were multiple outcomes. Maybe there's a pending review. Method takes in 3 input variables, hence there are 8 possible input combinations. There's also very convoluted conditional logic, as you could see with the vested statements. There's no class or method comments to document function or requirements. As I said, always comment, guys. I think it's like really important for your interviewer to see your thought process. Static runEligibility method is not the best object-oriented design method. This is like having 2 different methods is really not necessary in this situation. Okay, let's look at approaching the code analysis. So there's many ways to approach this analysis. You can trace the code line by line, and you can also build a truth table. So in this case, since there's like outcomes, 8 different outcomes, you can kind of build a table to get the result. You can work backwards from eligible returns and determine your conditions. But since it's a binary result, conditions not eligible are what is left from the 8 inputs. And you can narrow down exactly what to expect and what not to expect and how to fix this code. So example could be all active customers should be eligible, or avoid this. So let's look at this code to see what the fix is.
Is that it?
Sorry, I can't see the whole thing. Okay. So right here you could tell is active must be false in order to enter this conditional block. Was acquired must be true to continue, and has restrictions but must be false to skip line 9 and drop to line 11. So as you can tell, if was acquired equals false, it will go into the else loop, right? However, you can't have line, I believe it's has restrictions equals false and was acquired equals false. A lot of them are mutually exclusive. So to reach line 12, is active equals false, and was acquired equals true. And 8, which is has restrictions equals false, and 11, which is was acquired equals false. Was acquired can't be both true or false, in the situation, which means lines 7 and 11 are both contradicting statements and they're mutually exclusive. Hence, line 12 is unreachable, and so there needs to be edits to this code in order for not eligible to be actually accessed. So let's work through the analysis of the remaining conditional blocks. As you can tell, to reach line 24 or 30, has restrictions must be false. Those are also contradicting statements. So we have to remove lines 26 to 28 and the block 23 to 31 to reduce and simply return eligible. You guys can take a look at this code, but it's a lot more neater, and this is still there still needs to be a work in progress, but we're kind of going through each line and removing the lines that we think are unnecessary.
Cool. So some other considerations. You could change the return type to Boolean instead of the 1 and 0 that we saw earlier. This is better design. It's more natural. But a con to this is it breaks backward compatibility with clients. So that is something you can communicate with your interviewer. We could remove the parameter was acquired. It's not used, and it's a better contract. But again, it breaks backward compatibility with clients, and maybe we might need that in the future. So again, communicate that with your interviewer. Some alternatives, we could provide an override method with the above fixes. This is much better design. It allows for incremental migration, and it is aligned with OOP principles. So, some final tips to ace your case interview. 1, stay confident. Show enthusiasm and avoid frustration. Be thorough. Avoid easy mistakes. Ask questions. I cannot emphasize that one enough. Make sure you're asking your interviewer clarifying questions, and beware of making assumptions. You don't want to make an assumption that will end up causing you to get the wrong answer. And leverage your interviewer as a partner. Remember, at Capital One, you're going to be collaborating with a lot of people, so your interviewer wants to see that you can collaborate with them. And finally, have fun. Cool. Any questions? Yeah. Oh no. Sorry, I'm finding you the QR code to scan. There we go.
Hi, everybody. I just wanted to step in here real quick. My name is Anjanette Williams. I'm also in recruiting for Capital One. In case you came in late or you didn't do it before, please be sure to scan and fill out the QR code here. This will allow us to let you know this is our way of communicating with you. Thank you all for helping out. These are the people here that are actually doing the jobs. So they are actually working for Capital One, doing the jobs that you are seeking for. So, thank you guys. Again, I am in recruiting, so my job is to just help you all get that job to be one of them. So the important thing for me and Brianna that was here is to be able to get your information, to be able to get your, to get your names, emails, to be able to keep in contact with you to let you know when those positions are available or when our opportunities are available. So again, very important to let us know who you are by filling out that QR code. Also, I noticed some of you are taking pictures of slides and everything, and that's fine, kind of. But we would ask that you don't share the decks because all of these are confidential to Capital One, so we would just ask you not to share the presentation. And along with that, I think if y'all have any questions for the people that do, then here, then let's ask questions. Answer questions here.
I was just curious, you mentioned earlier that y'all were part of a program called TDP. I just wanted to know what that was.
Yeah, that's the technical development program. So it's specifically for SWEs, so software engineers. We do have a bunch of other programs kind of catering towards like analyst development program, so that's ADP, so if you want to be like a business analyst, or a PDP, a product development program, which is like for product owners. So we have a bunch of programs. Please visit our website.